Good morning. This is Michelle Hughes from Ageless and Timeless. Today we have a very special guest, and as you know, we have talked in the past about our spiritual journeys, and that this is one of the methods that we're going to create for ourselves in terms of our objective to live the best version of ourselves and the most blissful life possible. Our guest today has a journey to describe to us that will be very interesting and inspiring to all of us. His name is KJ Lavan, and he is from Houston, Texas. He began his career, lo and behold, in the pharmaceutical industry, and has made that journey from pharmaceutical executive to spiritual coach, teacher, author. He has just written a book called Why Is Your Reason for Being? And he's going to talk about that today on our podcast so that you'll have an understanding of what motivated him to create this book and how he's going to take this into the future. He has a plan to do a trilogy. So this is the first of 3 books that he will be using to teach us, and himself, of course, because we learn from what we do, and we are often our own greatest teachers. So, KJ, I'd like to introduce you and welcome to Ageless and Timeless.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction, Michelle. And yes, I'm happy to be here, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this moment with you and your audience. And as you said, I'm looking forward to share things that can help not only myself, but others as well. So thank you for that.
Well, you're so welcome. Well, why don't you tell us more about how you have come to this journey and what have been the key turning points in your life to create where you are today?
Yes, sure. So let me just say that it wasn't easy being a pharmaceutical executive and an athlete at the same time. And I guess just to kind of give you the strategy or the following that I had with where I am today. In grade school, I played a variety of sports, and during our annual spring football training during my junior year in high school, we were lifting weights one day, and someone left a copy of a muscle magazine on the floor. So naturally, I picked it up and was immediately consumed by something that I had never seen before. I mean, we're talking about bodybuilding pictures of Arnold Schwarzenegger, Robbie Robinson, Frank Zane, and others. And so as a young, impressionable teenager, that moment grew into a passion for, I guess you could say, pumping iron and the goal of becoming a professional bodybuilder. But it would have to be in tandem with my corporate aspirations. And so once I finished college, my ambitions of becoming a professional bodybuilder continued along with moving up the corporate ladder. So pharmaceuticals was a natural fit, as I was accustomed to looking at the body as a physical, mechanical material, if you will. So again, sitting in boardroom meetings and having to explain why I have to eat 6 times a day and drink so much water, at times it was a little challenging. But what I started doing was inviting my coworkers to workouts and my contests, so to give them a different level of appreciation. And not that I needed that, but it always helps to show rather than tell. So in that sense, what sparked my spiritual journey? Michelle, it's a moment etched in my mind. I was lying in the emergency room bed with excruciating pain in my lower back, thinking about how fragile and unpredictable life is. And the diagnosis was I was focused on my career and had taken my eye off what matters, my physical and mental well-being. And there was a phase in my life where every waking minute until bedtime was dedicated to my career, and nothing was dedicated to the routine I had had for years each week, which included working out, relaxing with friends, and putting work aside on the weekends. That was a huge mistake. And the prognosis was if I didn't want to end up back in the emergency room, I needed to resolve the disconnect between what was in my heart and what was a reality. And that disconnect was having a negative effect in all the dimensions of my life. And so it was at that moment that I made the decision to begin a new and exciting journey of living a life I truly see, designing my life so it makes sense to me. And like many listening to this podcast today, instead of me programming my life, life was programming me. And it was a conundrum which kept me delaying being in alignment with who I am. Because the reality is this: you don't get in life what you want. You get in life what you are. So this untimely experience had a profound impact on me and my life. It helped me to find what matters to me. It helped me to begin my journey of transformation. And what I discovered personally while convalescing in the emergency room is that when you interfere with the natural flow of your body, mind, and spirit, you not only compromise your ability to tap into your potential for all that you're capable of doing, but you also compromise your ability to live a harmonious life, a life of well-being, mentally and physically. It was Henry David Thoreau who said, "Oh God, to reach the point of death only to realize I have never lived at all." It was this self-awareness that hit me. If I continued on the same path I had been traveling, I would likely look back one day with regret for having lived a less than fulfilling life. That's when I began wondering, how many other people are there in this world who are living a life of what appears to be happiness and success, but feel there is so much more in them, to live a life of participation rather than accumulation? And so the question for all of us individually is, what matters to you? What's most important to you compared to how you're living? Shift that in order to live consistent with what matters to you. What matters to me is living in alignment with my heart's desire to help people engage their inner truth, why they are here, to inspire them to make the connection between their happiness and sharing their unique gift with the world. That the freedom, the happiness, safety, and security we all long for lies in our commitment to do what life has given us to do, respectively. So after much soul searching, I finally decided it was time to write a book, as you alluded to, the first of a trilogy, a book which pronounces my life's mission to impact 1 million lives by 2020 through my book and speaking, to inspire people to do more, to learn more, to dream more, to become more. So that's been my journey to this point.
Well, I am breathless listening to that, because that is, first, those are awesome intentions, and you've set your intentions. Obviously that means they're going to be fulfilled, because you will not give up. I know that about you already.
Thank you.
You mentioned 3 words that you feel are critical, and I believe that was choice, chance, and change. Would you explain how those 3 words will play a role in what you just described?
Yes. So I guess in picking up with what I just said, my model of how I view the body changed in terms of just seeing it as a physical, mechanical material. And it came to be where now I realize that the model is basically understanding that the body is a form of modified consciousness, and that pure consciousness is the highest intelligence for self-regulation and healing. So it's the choices you make from within and allowing yourself not to be influenced by external factors, because when you start to live from your true self, you're able to take the chances to make the changes. Because I say that in the sense that if you devote most of your attention to gaining external factors, such as a bigger house, nicer car, more money, and don't get me wrong, those things are great. I've experienced that. I love that. But if you focus all your attention and abilities on that, then it takes away from your true self, which is the source of all wealth, abundance, and everything else in the physical universe. So really, it's about tapping into your spiritual being. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, not human beings having a spiritual experience. So from that precipice, it is a situation where you have the ability to tap into your inner wisdom, the spiritual side of you, to give you the momentum you need to make the changes based on those choices. from within.
So you mentioned another concept that aligns with that, called transforming mediocrity into greatness. I believe that's part of your beautiful book. Can you elaborate on that concept as well?
Yeah, so I guess when you look at it in terms of what message I would like to convey to people, is that there are two fundamental messages in my book that I expound on, and that is, the first, the more you give, the more value you create for others, the more fulfilling and enriching your life becomes. The second is, when you retake control of your life and transform it, that's when you make a decision to make the commitment not to interfere with the natural flow of your body, mind, and spirit. So in the book, I illustrate why it's necessary that you avoid interfering with that natural flow of your body, mind, and spirit. To that end, the greatest source of unhappiness is self-unhappiness. External factors are not the primary source of unhappiness. The primary source of unhappiness comes from the inside again. And so when you talk about transforming mediocrity to greatness, it really is about perception and expectation. And I want to say this right now, Michelle. I love the title of your podcast, Ageless and Timeless. And I say that because scientific research continues to arrive at a better understanding of the inseparability of the body and mind. In fact, a landmark study called Counterclockwise by Harvard psychologist Ellen Langer showed that the so-called irreversible signs of aging, including deterioration in hearing, vision, manual dexterity, muscle strength, memory, all could be reversed through psychological shifts in awareness and increases in physical and mental activity. Now, this is not a metaphoric phenomenon. This is measurable in terms of aging biomarkers, bone density, muscle strength, fat content, immune functions, cholesterol ratios, and so on. So these biomarkers can be slowed and even reversed by getting enough sleep, eating right, and of course, physical activity. What that does is it allows us to reset our biological clock. So in other words, it's about creating a body-mind impact that sets you up to grow optimally, psychologically and physiologically, to connect with your life's purpose. That's what it means to go from mediocrity to greatness. And many people fail to make the measurable connection, not metaphorically, but biologically, between what is happening with their minds and what is happening with their bodies. And to give you an example, anti-aging experts share that what we consider aging, things such as bad joints, feebleness, and ill health, reflect a system that is deteriorating not by age, but other vices. And that can include poor nutrition, bad habits, stress, and more. So to your question, it really is about the inseparability of the body, mind, and spirit in order to tap into the greatest part of you to pursue and, of course, achieve all the things that you were meant to while you're here.
So, KJ, happiness is so elusive for so many people. And you tapped into Ageless and Timeless immediately with defining the purpose of your book and the purpose of your life. How have you been able to find your bliss, and how would you guide our listeners and viewers to that kind of effort that will help them to leapfrog some of the obstacles that prevent people from ever realizing happiness?
Yes. So I believe the purpose of life, Michelle, is the expansion of happiness. That's when you identify those things which bring the greatest joy to your life. That's when you're on the trail to discovering this inner truth, why you are here. And I have a simple exercise I use to help individuals identify what I call their happy space using a resource that I have implemented called a happy box. What I do is have individuals divide a sheet of paper up into 4 quadrants. The first quadrant is the question, what are you doing in your life that you want to? The second quadrant is, what are you not doing in your life that you want to? The third, what are you doing that you don't want to? And the fourth, what are you not doing and you don't want to? Now, the answers to boxes 1 and 4, they contribute to the quality of your life. Boxes 2 and 3 are compromising your life. So for me, again, I was compromising my mental and physical well-being. The question, what are you not doing in your life that you want to? Well, I wasn't working out, I wasn't eating right. And the other question was, what are you doing that you don't want to? Well, even though I was focused on the external factors of more money, bigger house, nicer car, working 7 days a week, not spending time with family, those are the things I didn't really want to do from a true self perspective, if you will. So what I do is allow people to see in black and white on paper where their happiness is, and if they're not there, what they should do to get there. This helps them, again, identify that happy space. And that's a start of what they need to do to transform their life to be in that space.
So now you're touching on goal setting. And that is another great challenge for many, many people. So do you have anything to add in terms of how they go about defining what it is that you have in those 4 quadrants and then executing on the areas that need the most attention, both from the proactive and the reactive standpoint?
Yes. So in terms of the actual journey of transforming your life, I've included in the book what's called the transformative quotient. What's your TQ quotient? The TQ quotient does 3 things. It helps you to understand the things that, as far as your decisions are being made, how they affect your life, and in turn, how it affects the world around you, number 1. And number 2, it helps you to recognize the dynamics that can undermine your success. And thirdly, it identifies barriers holding you back. Now, this TQ resource is divided into 5 categories. And each category is weighted to give you an idea of where you are based on where you want to be. The 5 categories include, number 1, questions about your attitude. The second is individual capacity. The third is getting there. The 4th, leadership and empowerment. And the 5th, body, mind, impact. So all of those categories were developed based on my experience in my journey, and also some of the most transformative figures we've known in the world, from Oprah Winfrey, Steve Jobs, Muhammad Ali, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Michael DeBakey. So all of this was something that I developed based on what I researched to help people, again, understand where they are in order to get to where they want to be. It's a process. Nobody can say, well, I'll just flip the switch and, tomorrow I'll be happy. It takes time.
Well, also, I think, excuse me for interrupting, but I also noticed that people tend to look in the rear view mirror instead of at the windshield. The windshield is much larger than the rear view mirror. However, people are crippled by their past very often, and it encumbers their present and, of course, the future. So is there any is there any secret sauce to learning from the past, learning from our failures, but not letting failure cripple us?
Right. So I guess I like to refer to one of the greatest scientists, I think, of the 20th century, Albert Einstein. He had a profound thinking about time when he said the distinction between past, present, and future is only the stubbornly persistent illusion So go past the illusion and you realize two amazing things. The first is you are the master of time because your beliefs, attitudes, and lifestyle choices alter all the effects of time. The second amazing thing is if the past, present, and future are illusions, you're timeless. And, I think what we all need to keep in mind is the mastery of time is a body-mind project because both are involved in how you experience and process time. To your question, a lot of times people have this idea of life in the past, as you mentioned, or in the future. But rarely do they have their sense of being in the moment. That's where you make changes. That's where, in the present moment, that's where change can occur. That's where illusions can fall away. And that's where transformation takes place. You say, well, what is present moment? What is living in the now? Let's talk about that. Being present is about getting real. And that's why intense experiences feel larger than life. For example, soldiers, they speak of being intensely alive in battle despite their fear. Or lovers, they look at ordinary life as dull and colorless compared to the bliss of being with their beloved. You ask, well, what shifts? Well, what shifts is our relationship to the here and now. Love, excitement, insight, creativity, joy, awe, inspiration, they all compel us into the present. And when they do, we can't help but ask, well, why did we ever leave? And one answer, Michelle, is that outside these experiences being intensely present, we step from the present moment and fall into a state of illusion. See, the present moment is always here with us, like I said, because it's who we are. And the chief illusion that draws us out of the present moment is the belief in the false present. For example, our regrets, our memory, feelings of sadness, that all fills up the present moment. So what you're doing is actually projecting a fantasy that has no relation to what is actually before you. That's the first illusion. The second illusion is that you're creating change by escaping the here and now. And the prime example of that? It's worry. Chronic worriers believe that somewhere deep down inside, they are protecting themselves by anticipating what might go wrong. So in saying that, the restless worrying mind, it creates an illusion instead of seeing present reality. It misses the opportunity to create change, and instead, it dwells on the fantasy of change. And with that, again, present awareness is the only place where change can occur and where illusions can begin to fall away.
So that expression, the past is a canceled check, the future is a promissory note, and the present is a gift, and that's why it's called the present. And so
yes.
I can't remember who said that, but it's very, very true and very consistent with what you just said. So how, if we get to that moment of the present and we are really feeling it in the sense of our authenticity and our joy and our awareness of everything that's around us, then in many ways we've conquered the demons that have been part of our past. And so I think you've just provided a description of how that can feel, how that can happen, and how that can feel. So in your book, and by the way, I received your book and I cannot wait to read it. It just looks so enticing. First, tell us what the cover is meaning, and what the title means as well. So if you could take a moment just to explain those two.
Okay, so in talking about the title, why is your reason for being? Well, it said the two most important moments in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. Each of us is a unique strand in the intricate web of life, here to make a unique contribution. And so woven every fiber of our being, notice being, is our divine purpose, our distinctive essence, waiting, even longing to be expressed as a gift to the world and ourselves. And so, Michelle, it was interesting to see so many similar titles on body, mind, and spirit. And like all authors, I wanted my book to stand out with a unique title that answers a question. So the objective of the book is to inspire you to share your story of transformation, to inspire and be inspired. The book offers you why it's possible to live the life you seek, why it's necessary to discover your true calling, and why it's worth it to share your greatness. After all, as I said before, we're all spiritual beings having a human experience. That was my, I guess, way of defining what I wanted my book to present to people. Those three whys: why it's possible, why it's necessary, and why it's worth it. As far as the cover, over the time that I had began my journey, I started researching different ways of that symbols have affected ancient civilization, which of course even today still affects us, even though we may not be conscious of it. So on the cover, the triangle intertwined with the circle, that represents the unity of our souls, because we're all connected. That is the genesis of each and every one of us. And so the triangle is the gateway, the circle is the connector. The stardust that you see on the book cover is what our physical bodies are made of, which includes self-awareness. And our bodies were manufactured in the crucible of stars millions of years ago. So spiritual connection is best illustrated through the vast legacy left on stone in ancient Egypt called hieroglyphs. And I'm sure some, if not all of your listeners like yourself are familiar with that. Hieroglyphs emerged from pre-literate artistic traditions from Egypt from 3200 BCE to 400 ACE. And hieroglyphic triangles represent a merging of the spiritual and earthly realms. It's considered a spiritual triangle, or understood as symbolic of a gateway or door. And being spiritually connected not only puts you in a position to live the life you truly seek, but it also gives you the power for creating profound moments in your life. With practice, through meditation, prayer, keeping a journal, whatever you decide, you can keep your gateway open and maintain your spiritual connection. So it really is about living from your true self, your inner wisdom, your intuition, as some people like to call it, the third eye. That inner wisdom, which provides you with infinite possibilities.
Are there any tricks that I'm being rather simplistic, because I know that many people need to have habits, and habits are routines. And so I'm just curious to know if you have any little tricks, like when you get up in the morning, what are some of the things you wouldn't do that would detract, because they would detract from your spiritual quest? Let's start there.
Okay, so I guess the main thing is to first be centered. If you can't feel that you're present in your body, you should center yourself by deep breathing and meditation. Because what meditation does, it gives you a direct experience of quietness without distraction. It allows you to be present in the moment. So I say all that to say that, what is it? What's my routine? What do I do for myself to keep me focused on the, present moment, if you will? That is, what served me well over the years is to try to get 8 hours of sleep every night, which sometimes is a challenge. When I wake up in the morning, I rate on a scale of 1 to 10. Am I rested? Am I joyful? Am I peaceful? Am I safe? Am I experiencing love? Then I introduce 4 intentions at the same time, feeling my body. Notice again, body and mind. The first intention, joyful. energetic body. The second, loving, compassionate heart. Third, reflective, alert mind. Fourth, lightness of being. And so only when you feel perfectly at home inside yourself does the present moment begin to unfold as a source of lasting fulfillment, where you need nothing outside yourself. That's a state of awareness, because the here and now is enough. So I say that to your question, what things can you do to not do in order to keep you on the path of fulfillment? I think a lot of times, again, it has to start with what makes you happy. That's where you start. If that makes you happy, then you have to build your everyday, your time that's consumed based on what that looks like. And when you do that, you're less likely to have interruptions or disruptions that take you away from that. So, like many things, it's not necessarily a secret. It's a process. And over time, as I think Jim Rohn said, success is practice discipline every day. If you allow yourself to practice and be persistent with that, then you become what you want to be.
So I bet you don't look at your emails first thing in the morning.
I do not. that is one thing that I have learned, that if I'm going to have a good day, I want to start with, as I said, assessing how I feel when I wake, meditate. That's part of it. This morning I did yoga after I meditated. So that's another thing, helping to be centered and, obviously activate your mind and body at the same time. But yeah, you've got to do certain things in a way that allows you not to disrupt that mental calm you wake up with in the morning. And yes, it's a challenge just because of the society we live in, but if you allow yourself to get into a practice of doing things a certain way, like answering emails at the end of the day rather than at the beginning, then it could add to the fulfillment that you seek throughout the day. Look, and it may seem small, but that could be a major thing that could help you.
Oh, I think that for some people would be impractical, obviously, because they're in business or in commercial activities that require that they be responsive. However, I think what you said about getting up and doing the things that you love first before you target the other activities, whatever time of the day that might be, but you still have responsibilities that you have to address. However, you've named three things that could be very calming to the spirit. One being meditation, and that calms the mind. Two being some physical activity. One thing that I just thought of that you didn't say would be the nutrition. I think, could you address that for a moment, that how important it is to start your day with something that is healthy, nutrition-wise?
Yes, right. And you're right. I did fail to mention it, but believe me, it's been a part of my life for a long time. And so, I think what we have is a society now that has it backwards when it comes to nutrition and how to start the day. Most people go through their whole day without breakfast and gorge themselves in the evening when that's the biggest meal. That's a huge mistake. That in part causes the health issues we see today. The most important meal of the day should be the breakfast. And believe me, that's something that I guess you could say worship in terms of, hey, my first meal is the best meal. And sometimes it's the largest meal, and it should be, because all through the day, you need that energy to perform at the level you need. But again, society has a structure where we're rushed to get to the office or whatever it is we're doing in the morning. We might grab a cup of coffee, we might get a donut, bagel, whatever it is. And we leave open this door of not providing the necessary fuel for our brain and our body. And again, it really lends itself to continued increases in chronic illnesses, particularly with diabetes. You've got chronic respiratory illnesses, obesity, all those things, which I think have been exacerbated, again, by the structure in which we feed ourselves. The first thing in the morning should be very important in terms of the meal that will provide what's necessary for your cells, body, and your mind, and the cells that are going to be energized by that.
You know that that expression: eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dinner like a pauper.
I like that.
So that
I like that.
that would be a good guidance, I think. Although many people are so, as you said, so rushed in the morning, and now the new philosophy is intermittent fasting, which is creating a whole different paradigm for
Right.
morning meal. Because if you're fasting, you're burning fat, right? So if you don't eat,
Right.
if you didn't eat until, let's say, 11 or noon or something, then you've just burned more fat. Metabolically, your body is using that fat for energy. And then you eat your lunch, with discretion, a salad or something that breaks you back in to the healthy lifestyle, but doesn't overwhelm your metabolism and cause you to get fatigued. Because we all know about the glycemic index, and we all know that if we have too much food, that we're going to feel weary. So eating lunch like a prince is that's a matter of definition.
Right.
So I know some people just have trouble eating big breakfast. I'm one of them. I always try to have my protein in the morning, my protein powder and a smoothie. And that really does work for me. So, biochemically, we're all different. And there are people who couldn't start their day without coffee. And give them credit for the fact that they're able to still not have a drop in their energy from the caffeine, because there is the scientific evidence that does happen.
Right. Yeah. And so I'm definitely not advocating for, the things that people do to just cut them off completely. But just to be mindful of what other things that could be useful to their day based on their nutrition. That could be, part of that. Don't skip the coffee, but with the coffee, have, some berries, some yogurt, something like you said, some protein. I mean, that's one of the things that I think over the years I've found that if I can't eat a meal, which it sounds like for you in the morning, that's the case, I always ensure that I have a protein shake and maybe a fruit, because protein is it's it. I mean, yes, you need carbs and all that, but if you do get the protein in, that's better than not having the protein.
You're absolutely right. And actually, one of our guests coming on soon is a certified nutritionist, and we're going to delve into this deeply, because there's so much confusion about how the food is our medicine, but which foods and how and what time of the day are the best times and how much and so forth. So we will be addressing that. I hope you'll be able to catch that particular podcast, because it's right up. It's right up your philosophical alley as well. So I one of my favorite books ever is Eric Fromm, The Art of Loving, and in his book, KJ, he says, in giving, we receive. Would you elaborate on that concept of in giving, we receive, as it relates to living your fullest, the best version of you and your fullest life? I know you've touched on it in your book, so I'd love you to talk about it a little bit.
Yes. So I guess when we talk about the best you, I look at it as it's about practicing self-development and breaking free of clock time. And I'll expound a little bit on that a little bit later. But again, I began my journey with wanting to become knowledgeable in the realm of spirituality. So in that sense, I put aside 30 minutes each day to read or listen to a personal growth expert. And you might say, well, 30 minutes per day, doesn't sound like a lot, but in a year's time, that's 182 and a half hours. So just imagine you reading at least 200 books in that same period. It's kind of like getting a vivid picture of those 200 books written by experts in the subject that interests you, and you being able to absorb all the contents. It's kind of like putting your hand in a pot of glue and pull it out without much of the glue sticking to it. That's not the case. A lot of glue is going to be sticking to your hand. Similarly, you can't put into your mind the knowledge contained in these powerful thoughts from these experts without much of that knowledge staying with you. So that's part of my self-development that I try to incorporate daily. But the other aspect, as I mentioned, was breaking free of clock time. Again, we live in a society where, time is of the essence, if you will. So when we talk about breaking free of clock time, we have to talk about flow. There's two types of flows here. The first, the flow of time, of course, that's measured by the clock. And that's very different from being in the flow, which occurs only in the here and now, as we talked about earlier. So, clock time seems so normal the way that 12 o'clock noon is followed by 12:01, 12:02, and so on. But to live in the present, we need to break free of that clock time. And the world's wisdom traditions, the inner core beliefs of spirituality and religion, they all declare that the present moment is the only real time that exists. So our bodies agree with this. Let's bring this body-mind thing back in. That is, every cell in our body lives only in the now. And even when you remember your past, the brain cells that process the memory, they're doing it right now. You ask, well, what pulls us out of the now, the here and now? What takes us out of the present moment? Well, it's our habits, it's our beliefs, it's our old conditioning, our lack of awareness. All of that keeps distracting us. It's kind of like we race against the clock, or else, we sit and wait for something to happen. But this all changes when we engage a place inside that lives in the now as easily and effortlessly as our cells do. So, again, meditation takes us into a zone of mental peace and quiet, essentially the now. And as long as you identify with the clock, the passing years, the burden of the past, and the rest of the baggage that comes from being distracted, the active mind can't locate the now. It will never truly be in the flow until it has an aha moment and realizes that flow is simply the point where the inner self meets outer life. This point always doesn't begin here and end later somewhere else. It's always present inside you. And so since your inner self already lives in the present moment, and so does your mind when it experiences deep awareness, being in the now is holistic. So again, to tie this to the body and mind, being in the now optimizes how the body functions because the mind no longer interferes. It ceases its anxiety, its stress, its flexible habits, its illusions, and so on. Instead, the mind listens to the body. You are alert and aware of how your body actually feels. And something happens at that point. You discover that it is much more fulfilling to feel your way through life than to try to control it, than to try to think, worry, and struggle. This union of the body and mind it leads to a greater sensitivity and openness. And, there's nothing more secure, Michelle, than the sense of trusting how your life is going because it feels right. That is what the gift of being in the flow is. It feels right.
Well, yes, but what Eric Fromm was really addressing is the joy we get from giving versus receiving, that in giving that we are getting our greatest gift. And that's really what I was asking you is are you living that philosophy in terms of what, let's say, a Warren Buffett and a Bill Gates are doing at the nth degree of putting so much of their net worth into giving back. And so I was just really hoping that we could talk for a moment about the joy of being a philanthropist, or at least a giver in the small ways. For example, if you're having a bad day, one of the best things you can do is call up somebody or email them and tell them how much they mean to you. And that brings you joy by just offering your love, even if you're not feeling at your top, at the top of the food chain that particular moment. By offering someone else your affection, you are doing something that actually enriches you. You are getting a gift by the feedback, and you know, we are what we think, right? So, and we are what we
Right.
do. So that's really what I was asking you. I may have miscommunicated, but I was really trying to get you to address the giving part of life and how that enriches us as human beings. Do you want to take a moment and and answer that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So, well, you know, I think, and yeah, maybe I took it wrong in terms of the question itself and what answer I gave, but, you know, it's fulfilling and gratifying when I give a talk and people come up to me afterwards to share their personal stories, you know, their hardships, their triumphs, the trials and tribulations, and or you know, people I just happened to meet on the plane or at a seminar or just passing. You know, I think what I'm finding is that most people are longing for belonging, one, and to know what direction their life should be in. And so these interactions tell me that people are endlessly searching for meaning and understanding to express their ideas, their feelings, and to know themselves. For me, my thing is, my purpose is to, again, allow people to engage their happiness and make the connection with their unique gift. Because, as I said before, I believe the purpose of life is the expansion of happiness. My wish is to impact 1 million lives by 2020. You know, whether it's that young kid who I provided some education as far as science, technology, engineering, and math, who, you know, said, I want to become an engineer based on some of the, you know, tasks we did in the class, or the woman who was working out and came up to me and said, thank you. And I asked her, well, what do you mean, thank me? You know, well, I heard you speak the other day and you really inspired me to look at my life in a different way and the new possibilities for it. And of course, I said, thank you for that. Or the gentleman who, you know, was walking at the mall and recognized me from one of my speeches and said, hey, when are you going to come back and speak to us again? We want to hear you again. You know, those things are very fulfilling because it lets me know that I am touching people's lives in a way in which they want to make the necessary changes for their own lives. And, you know, what you give, you receive. And I feel, for me, I get back tenfold what I give without thinking about it.
That's right.
So that's really the essence of what life is about. It should be about, you know, because if you take, it's kind of like the Dead Sea, you know, everything that goes into it is dead. It doesn't give anything. That's why they call it the Dead Sea. Well, a lot of people are living their lives not giving, and they're dead. They're you know, and they just haven't been buried. But my thing is that I feel if you live your life in a way that shares your unique gift to elevate the human spirit, you're going to find fulfillment in a way that is unimaginable. And the more you share, the less you try to not share or keep it hidden or just decide, oh, I'm not going to, you know, participate in that, or I'm not going to give this idea or this thought or this answer, then you're not only the one who's being less for it, but the universe is being less for it. We all, are sacrificed in that sense.
Well, excuse me, KJ, but you know the expression, the chain is only as strong as the weakest link, and you just described that in terms of how we are all interconnected, and our actions and behaviors and thoughts and all create that reality. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but I know you wanted to offer a special gift to our viewers, for Ageless and Timeless viewers. So would you like to describe what that is?
Yes, sure. So I would like to, offer you my book and give you a free gift in that same vein. So if you go to kjlavan.com, click on Claim Your Gift, put in the code Ageless, and you'll receive a free audiobook introduction. But that's not all. You'll also receive or be qualified to have a 30-minute complimentary life coaching session with me. So again, just go to kjlavan.com, click on Claim Your Gift, put in the code Ageless, and you'll receive a free audiobook, and at the same time be eligible to have a 30-minute complimentary life coaching session.
That is extraordinary. And just so we're clear, there were no periods, right? It's just KJLAVAN?
.com, yes.
Yes, but no periods in between K and J.
Oh, no.
Yeah, just KJ and then LAVAN, and then click the icon that says Claim Your Gift. And then you'll know that it's our viewers when they type in the coupon code Ageless.
Correct.
All right. And then they'll be sending you an email or to connect with you in terms of the 30 minutes, as well as you'll have their email to download the preview of your book, correct?
Right. Yes. So basically they're going to get the paperback now. But shortly, they're going to be able to also download the ebook, which has not been published just yet.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So they'll get a paperback, an actual hard copy in the mail?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, yes. That is just amazing. And then if they're really smitten with everything that they've heard today, and they've read your book and had their 30-minute consultation, and they want to take another step into their awareness and evolution and enlightenment with you, then what would they do?
Yes. So basically go to, again, kjlavan.com, and on the at the top, click on Contact Author, and I will receive whatever message. Hopefully, you're wanting to start a journey of, finding yourself, if you will, to live a more complete and fulfilling life. I'd be happy to reply with what it is that we can do to help you get there.
And you can do this by Skype if they're not in Houston?
Yes, I can do it by Skype or any platform that will allow us to have a one-on-one face. So yes.
Okay, very good. All right. Well, I apologize. Our time flew by here, and we learned so much from you today. And I just want to thank you again for sharing your insights and your very special journey to this place of evolution of where you are today and where you're going with the next 2 books, and how we will all benefit from your incredible enlightenment. So thank you again, KJ, and you have a beautiful day.
Well, thank you, Michelle. I appreciate you having me on, and I hope your audience, has gotten something from this, and look forward to helping them in whatever way it is that they would like. So, again, thank you so much. It's an honor and a privilege to have been able to do this with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We say in our vision statement for Ageless and Timeless that we're looking to make this journey the most blissful journey that is possible, and we're here to learn. We're here to hold hands and learn together and celebrate our successes and mitigate our failures, but learn from our failures. So today we have the opportunity to listen to someone who has traveled that path and has written a beautiful book. Again, the name of that book is Why Is Your Reason for Being? And if you can take advantage of KJ's offer, I enthusiastically endorse that opportunity. I think you'll learn some very important truths about your journey. So I wish you all well, and we'll see you again next time. This is Michelle Hughes. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and that's agelessandtimeless.com will be our website. We're putting that together as we speak today. So thank you so much for listening and watching.